How are you guys doing today? Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege, here on a Friday, November 15th, talking about the Week 11 that we had to start yesterday on a Thursday, a divisional matchup between the Eagles and the Washington Commanders. It was a great game, mostly tightly contested throughout the entire game except that second half and mainly the fourth quarter between the Eagles and the Commanders. We're going to talk about that and discuss what made the difference in that game, plus more on the Washington Commanders later on, talking about what do we make about this sort of lull that they've faced recently over the last couple games. Is it a sign to come, or can they overcome it to improve later on in the year? Plus the game picks, plus some more topics, again talking about Deion Sanders yet again. A lot more coming up on today's show, so make sure to stick around. But before we do get started on the first segment, I want to remind you guys, if you guys have any questions or comments or just anything you'd like to share on today's show, please don't hesitate to do so. We always like when you guys get involved and share whatever you guys have to say during these live shows. And now, if you want to make it absolutely sure that your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that. Just use the Super Chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your Super Chat. In this way, it guarantees that your message gets on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel, and we always appreciate it when you guys are able to support our sports content and get involved with the show. So go ahead and let us know what you're thinking. Hit the Super Chat button, and let's keep this show as interactive and as conversational as always. It's always a big help when you guys are able to do that, so please don't hesitate. Get involved with the show. Let me know what you're thinking on any of the topics that we have on today's show and, just going forward. So that is that. And now we can talk about what we saw last night. And really just like last night, the Eagles and Saquon, it started off pretty rough, but towards the end, towards the fourth quarter, right, when Saquon goes crazy, has those two, touchdowns towards the end, it just reminded me of how, just, dumb and disgusted I was with the Giants for letting Saquon walk out that door. In the moment, I knew it was going to happen, going back months now, right? You knew it was going to happen the way things were trending, Hard Knocks and everything like that. And then for it to actually happen, you knew things like this were going to happen. And for still the Giants, again, to just let him walk because he's a running back, because he's on the other side of 25, it's asinine just what they did. And not only Saquon, but it's crazy to think how the Eagles and the Ravens, sort of took a chance on, older running backs and gave them more money than maybe a lot of teams would have, and they might have been looked at as a little bit just out of the ordinary, maybe they were paying too much for these guys because of their age, because they were running backs. And now, look at the two teams, right? Look at Baltimore and how good they are, and look at the Eagles as well. They have the two favorites for the Offensive Player of the Year, again, after an offseason where these moves were looked upon as a little bit, crazy or optimistic, and now it's just nuts. It's nuts how good the Eagles were already, and then just for them to get Saquon, it's a shame. It's a shame that the Giants, let this happen. And even the fans let them know about it, right? Showing their gratitude for what the Giants just gave them, just basically handed it to them to make them even better. But beside that, Saquon helped Philadelphia close the door last night on Washington as the Eagles won 26-18 to take a stronger grasp on the division lead. Now the Eagles sit at 8-2, while the Washington Commanders lose their second game in the last 5 days to drop to 7-4 and all the way down to the 7th seed in the playoffs after, Thursday, on Friday, today. There's still all these games that yet to be played. The seedings could get mixed up a little bit more depending on the results. But right now on Friday, November 15th, the Commanders sit as the last seed in the playoffs. So it's very different circumstances now, right? And, apart from that, apart from waiting to see the other results, the Eagles win their 6th straight game despite another bad start from them. It was an ugly first half from them again. A couple missed field goals, a missed extra point. But really, it all turned around in the second half when their defense really started to make an impact in this game, and they dominated the entire fourth quarter as well. And to that point, Jaden Daniels has been held to 23 rushing yards last night, and also with the Steelers game combined, he's only had 23 rushing yards, which it is not like a huge problem, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on as to why maybe this Commanders defense is sort of in a plateau period right now with this offense. More on that as we get on with the show and into the other segments. But looking at everybody else and how they perform, we mentioned Jaden Daniels, 191 passing yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Brian Robinson added 63 rushing yards, and he scored the first touchdown of the game. Austin Eckler led in receptions and receiving yards with 89, and Zach Ertz followed him with 6 receptions as well. Those two guys were the only guys to record over 2 receptions, and the other receivers only had 2 or just 1 reception the entire game, which, it kind of points out to what we talked about yesterday, the lack of weapons for the Commanders, but we'll get more to that in the next segment. But just to stick on the game last night, Jalen Hurts, he had a pretty solid game, 221 passing yards, and he contributed with a rushing touchdown as well. Saquon, again, he went crazy, 26 carries, 146 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. And A.J. Brown, also the leading receiver, 5 receptions for 65 yards on the night last night. And those are all the stats, but really how this game sort of broke down. In the first half, it was pretty... it was kind of like just walking in mud, walking in quicksand with these two teams. It was 7 punts, 2 missed field goals, and really into halftime, Washington led 7-3 after the Eagles hit a field goal to get their first points in the first half with about 20 seconds left, which was pretty worrying for the Eagles' point of view, but still a close game considering the Commanders couldn't really do too much with that. And after both teams exchanged field goals, to start the second half there early in the third quarter, the score became 10-6 before the first touchdown of the game was scored, and the Eagles scored their first touchdown to take the lead 12-10 in the third quarter. Then came the big moment in the game, the crucial point of the match where the next 2 drives for each team were huge just because of the fact that I thought it decided the game. The next 2 drives for the Commanders and the next 2 drives for the Eagles were huge in this game here in the second half. Anthony Manzano, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. But yeah, the next 2 drives for each team was huge just because after the Eagles took a 12-10 lead, Washington had the opportunity. They were putting together one of their best drives before a 4th down attempt came. There was a lot of controversy whether or not they should have went for that 4th down or had taken the lead, but of course they went for it, obviously. Jaden Daniels fumbles the snap, and the whole play is just messed up from there. And of course, right after that, Philly fumbles on the next drive, actually, but of course, they go out there and recover their own fumble, which was a missed opportunity, and the Eagles go down and score. Now it's 19-10 with 4 minutes and 58 seconds left, and then already looking a little bit dire, Jaden Daniels goes out there and throws an interception on the first play to Reed Blankenship before Saquon scores again, and that pretty much wrapped up the entire game at that point. Just the Eagles getting everything to fall in their favor. Anthony, do you feel the Commanders might miss the playoffs because Daniels is a rookie? I'm not saying he's going to be the reason why they miss it. It's just I think that's too much pressure on a rookie. I don't think they'll miss it. Because if they're going to miss it, I got to think of the teams that could replace them, right? Instead, if they were to miss the playoffs, and looking at it right now, I mean, the 49ers are still there, but I think they'd probably replace Green Bay, if anything, or they would replace Arizona. I'd be very surprised if Arizona wins their division, quite honestly. So, if anything, the 49ers would go to 4, and maybe the Cardinals would drop off, because I think it would be a bit harsh if they missed the playoffs because of how good they have shown to play for the majority of the season. So, I don't think they'd be the ones to miss out. I would probably put my money on Arizona to lose the division. San Francisco jumps up from 8 to number 4, and Arizona drops out of the playoffs, and the Commanders would probably sneak in. That's how I would also play it, but to your point, I can't disregard, the Rams, the Seahawks also trying to make a push for it here in the second half of the year. So it is a little bit possible, but I wouldn't think they would miss the playoffs and just drop off like that. The rest of their schedule is pretty favorable, but it is a reality check, certainly, for Washington, because it points to the issue I saw with them, their offense. Terry McLaurin had 1 reception all game, and so did Noah Brown. This team still needs, weapons for Jaden Daniels. You look at what he had at LSU. I'm not expecting them to go out and get like a Malik Neighbors or a Brian Thomas Jr., but he had those 2 guys that really made his life a lot easier, and he made their lives a lot easier for how good he is. So the Commanders don't really have that just outside of Terry McLaurin. So I think it was a reality check for them. They can't do much now, but they need to, find other ways to go about it and find some more ways to try and win these games, obviously. Anthony, I don't think they miss it, but I just feel that it would be a good learning experience for them to possibly miss the playoffs, because I don't think Daniels is ready for the playoffs right now because he's a rookie, and I feel that he might make a mistake that could cost them in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, that could all very well happen. At this point, who would they play? They would play the number 2 seed, which right now would be the Eagles, funny enough. So, I have to see how they, evolve from this and, get better from this. The next time they will play them will be in Washington. So, if that one's a closer game, if maybe the Commanders somehow win that one, then I think it'll change. There's still a lot of games left. I think they would make the playoffs, though. And much like the Packers last year, Jordan Love had a great game the first round, then he made a mistake and they lost to the 49ers, right? I think all of that just helps them out, and I'd rather see them go through it than, not make the playoffs at all. I think getting that atmosphere early on in your career, I think only makes it better for your rookie quarterback. So I would go with that, but, overall, just on this game, the Eagles win it. They go to 8-2. One of their best records in the recent 3 years or so for them and Nick Sirianni, so they're definitely rolling heading into the second half of the year. But we're not going to talk too much more about the Eagles. They are what they are. They are proving their worth as of right now. We are going to talk more about the Commanders, though, so we'll be right back after this break. We're going to talk about the Commanders and more, discussing whether or not they have hit a rookie wall, to your point, Anthony, for Jaden Daniels, and can they overcome it for the last couple games that they have here in 2024. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.